And today, I want to tell you that you need to call it assault. You need to stop calling sexual assault sexual abuse. And I'm going to tell you why. Yesterday, I introduced the SPADES program, and we touched on this, and we'll probably touch on it every single day in every single workshop from now on. But we're going to start with trying to explain to you why the language of society sets women, children up to be commoditized and victimized, and in ways that are subtle and in ways that are just so blatant. And this is one that's driving me crazy. My own therapist and counselor and everyone I've talked to, which is a lot of people over the last 20 years, since I have made this realization that calling it abuse, referring in the news as sexual abuse, um, instead of sexual assault. And I mean, rape is assault, right? I mean, if I punch you in the face, did I abuse your face? No, I punched your face. I can't get my glasses straight. So why is it important? It's important that we call sexual assault, and that's what rape is, and inappropriate touching of any form, uh, because the sentencing is different, because it feels different. I was just watching a YouTube video with a fellow survivor of CSA, and she said the same thing. She's like, it's just normalized. We are normalizing sexual assault, and calling it sexual abuse isn't helping anything. So start there. Start there. I want you to call it assault. All right. Now I'm working on my first TED talk. I've actually written it, and if you've been with me for long, you know I always talk off the cuff. I always talk on the fly. I want to consult the iPad here, though, because I do want to kind of go through the points of my TED talk with you. And if you have anything you want to suggest or add or argue with or whatever, that'd be a really good time. So I talked to them about everyone's fearing the wrong thing. We're fearing sexual predators that are, lurking in the bushes or hiding in the alleys or driving up and stealing your children in vans. And, that happens definitely. But most sexual assault, not abuse, assault, happens in the home. It's the coaches, it's the preachers, it's the neighbors, it's somebody so trusted, the brother-in-law, somebody so trusted that even your parents, my kindly, wonderful parents, never suspected that I was being groomed and assaulted. And it happened so gradually over such a long period of time that I didn't even realize that's what was happening. Hence, the guilt and the shame and the you should have known better and all the crap that we pile on ourselves and carry around with us for a lifetime. So you may have cPTSD and not even know it. And the medical profession is finally catching up, especially now that actual medical research and studies on the brain show the difference in development of a person who has been exposed to long-term trauma in childhood. You can even get cPTSD in adulthood, but generally the complex is the first C. Complex PTSD is because of a recurring thing. I highly recommend you listen to the Crappy Childhood Fairy, Anna Runkle. She's been talking about cPTSD since before the medical profession caught up, and now they're on board with her. She is not sexual abuse, assault. See, we're so conditioned to say sexual abuse, sexual assault. She's not sexual assault specific. So I like to piggyback off of the same. And actually, my program was developed before I found her, and I went, hey, you're saying many similar things that made me realize that what I'm doing also applies to people who weren't just sexually assaulted as children. But that's my focus. My focus is on overcoming intimacy issues and realizing that you have them to start with. So back to, I'm going to kind of go through my TED talk here. And here I've got an estimated 4.8 million. Say that again, 4.8 million people are trafficked for forced sexual exploitation every year. Well, I've seen numbers that are as high as 20 million. 1.2 million, according to the ILO, are children being trafficked for sex. 1.2 million a year on average. Think about that. I don't even know. It gets me upset. So, long-term sexual grooming and violation, it's insidious. They tell us that we should have known better, but it leads to this neurological diversion that, now that we're all grown up, has become embedded in the program of our life, of who we are, of how we live. We live to please other people. We live frightened that we're not good enough. When I met my best friend Lisa, it was like almost hilarious to me that, once we became good friends and confessed, she's like, I always thought you were a bitch because you, believe it or not, quiet and keep to yourself. And I'm like, I kind of thought the same thing about you. And it turns out Lisa had been severely traumatized also. And we tend to find each other, even though we don't know it. You tend to find damaged people. And that can be awesome if you're working together at changing and having a better life. But what we tend to do is pick partners with similar or complementary damage. And so you put together two people with CPTSD, and, you know, basically someone needs to be the emotionally intelligent base in the operation. And unfortunately, that's hard to find. So the first thing you need to do is become self-reliant and throw out of your life all of the things that don't fit. Remove the jobs, the people, the friends that are really, I've had to do this. I've had to let go of friends that I just can't get on the same page with, that I realize were tearing me down every time I spoke to them instead of building me up. We tend to, CPTSD sufferers, I hate that word suffer, those of us with CPTSD, we tend to gravitate towards people that need help, because when we're helping someone else, then we feel useful. And what people who were not, and I'm going to talk sexual CPTSD specific, sexual assault CPTSD, people who never experienced that cannot possibly understand the changes that it's made. So they can't reflect that back to you. And until you make the awareness that this is something you have that you need to deal with, you won't change your life. So if you don't want to change your life, I mean, cool. I don't know what you're doing here. I am not a licensed therapist by any means. I am actually a neurolinguistic practitioner now, and I've been working at that for a while. I specifically talk with people with CPTSD, but I am really, really more into advocating. And that's why my first TED Talk, that's TEDx Talk, is Call It Assault, because we have to start at the root of the problem, okay? So, the SPADES program is built on an acronym. Well, I made the acronym off of things that I do, things that I, in 20 years of, what started as marriage counseling turned into sexual assault counseling. And I didn't even know I needed it. And then it was presented to me that I had PTSD, and that explains a lot. I mean, it should have been obvious, but it wasn't. And so what I've decided to do with the rest of my life is devote it to trying to teach what we're doing wrong and to try to go help people that are in trouble. And on that note, SweetSurvivor.com. I think it's in the hashtag. That is one of my .coms. Actually, LindaKGifford.com, SweetShoppingGroup.com, which is raising money for Sweet Survivor Resource Fund, and now the Sweet Rescue Teams, the Sweet Hero Rescue Teams, I'm calling it. I have found my purpose. 1.2 million people trafficked. Well, Thorn, the leading rescuer of children worldwide, sex trafficked children and adults worldwide, was founded in 2012 by Ashton Fisher and Demi Moore. And he and my niece and many other people are very involved and have rescued over 6,000 children through the use of cyber technology combined with local, regional, federal, and international law enforcement and private agencies, all of whom they are coordinating. So what I want you to do, and here's my call to action, okay? I want you to become a sweet hero. And all I mean by that is I want you to be on a neighborhood watch, online and offline. And I'm going to teach you the things to look for so you can realize if there's somebody potentially being trafficked and know what to do to help them. You can report it to us. You can report it to Thorn. We're going to report directly back to Thorn, and I'm working on that connection right now. There's also RAINN. If you are a victim of sexual assault and you need to get in touch with someone to get help right now, call the RAINN hotline. And there are counselors there to help you. But what I see as a CSA survivor is a hole in two places. One, a hole of information. It is shocking, the number, and it's when I throw the numbers out there, people think I'm kidding. They think that it's a conspiracy theory. No, nobody's drinking the blood of children. It's not like that. It's like it's so normalized in our society that, oh hell, a minister, just an example, there were one of many, many thousands of examples. A minister who had been raping his own daughter, right, was caught when she was 13. He'd been raping her for years. And he didn't get any jail time because the judge decided he'd done so much other good in the community. So when we live in a society that allows people to counterbalance raping their daughter or somebody else with, you're a good person otherwise, really? My anger is welling up. I used to cuss a lot on here. When I started live streaming, it was just for my sanity, and then there was a pandemic, and what are you going to do? I was already working from home, running my online store. And I used a lot of profanity and a little bit of wine. But in this time, I have gotten very serious, and I have rolled my entire store and several .coms into one fundraising platform for Sweet Survivor. And I am looking for every avenue that we can do actual good in the world. So if you will help me help you and everybody else and your children and your grandchildren and your sisters and your brothers, if you would just learn what you need to know, keep your eyes open, watch online, and when you see something, say something. It always comes back down to that, but it's just such a good adage. When you see something, say something. And I don't mean to your buddy on the porch or your neighbor. I mean, get on the phone. That becomes complicated because you don't just want to go busting your neighbor on a suspicion, right? So, hence, organizations like Thorn, who are capable of doing the cyber research, they have developed an algorithm that has pulled so much data that they can track and find traffickers. So let's help them, okay? Let's help them. Briefly again, the SPADES program that starts officially next week. This is an intro, yesterday and today, and also to make sure I've got Restream and going out to multiple places now for the first time. I want to make sure it all works. Obviously, someone's like, you need some makeup. I'm like, or that my makeup's too white. not wearing any. So that's probably a thing. I don't like makeup, and I just am that white. I'm in the sun all the time. But the Spades program, the overview is S, the shame is not yours. P, separate the past from the present. A, ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given in life. D, don't wait to feel okay to be okay. And E, educate and advocate. And the final S is spirit. And don't get scared. It's not about religion. Don't get scared either if you're the religious type, because it's not about religion. So briefly, each week's going to be spent on one of these letters, but they all come up every day. And the reason I put it into an acronym that's easy to remember is SPADES. Survive in spades. Spades is abundance. Spades. It also worked with what I had written down, and I was looking for letters that fit. But when I landed on spades, I was like, this is a sign of abundance, and it's also digging up the dirt and planting a garden, right? So if you don't dig the dirt up, you can't grow the seeds. You can scatter them and hope for a sprout, but if you want a plant that's viable, that's nurtured and healthy, then you need to dig. So spades, easy to remember, and it's something that I carry literally like it's a mantra that's always in my pocket. And it stopped me from jumping down a lot of rabbit holes that I used to jump down, the rabbit hole of despair, of freak out, of partying, drinking, uh, running, just anything to not deal with the thought. So the first thing that we're going to do is start with S. The shame is not yours. Seems so easy, right? But it's the hardest thing to understand, because you can say it, you can write about it, but on a gut level, you always carry this knowledge that you feel different. So I'm here to remind you that 1 in 3 women has reported being sexually violated in one way or another, and 1 in 6 have been sexually violated before the age of 12. You're not alone. And I'm not alone. And while it's a source of comfort, it makes me sick. So, help me with SweetSurvivor, and let's change things. The shame is not yours. The shame is the person who did this. The shame is your assaulters, your assailants. You don't have to forgive them. As I was saying yesterday, forgiveness is only necessary within the context of your spiritual beliefs, your soul, your you can forgive and hope the best for somebody even if they did something terrible to you. But if you let them off the hook, if you don't stop them from doing it to somebody else, if you let society call what they did to you sexual abuse when they really raped you for years and they assaulted you, if you let those things go on, nothing changes. Why carry the shame that's not yours? Okay, so we're going to work hard on that next Wednesday and Thursday, 2 o'clock, Wednesdays and Thursdays for the next 7 weeks after this. Because there'll be an outro week too. So we were at P, separate the past from the present. This literally will come up every single session, every single time, and every single day you're going to need to do this. This is where you either consciously freak out one way or the other, whether you show it or not, or you subconsciously experience things and you don't identify it because you've dissociated from it so much that you don't face it in your own mind. So we're going to get that stuff out of your gut and put it in your head. That's what separating the past from the present is. PTSD and cPTSD is feeling something. It's not, people who don't have it are confused with thinking it's just a memory, but it's not just a memory, and medical science backs up. It is the taking over of the present by the past in a way that feels absolutely real to us. It's like, when a video starts to play on top of another one, you can see them both. it's like that. And there's a moment there where you can learn that it's coming on and recognize it and pull away from the rabbit hole of crazy, of confusion, and stop doing things like being attached to partners that aren't good for you, staying in jobs you don't like, being abused or assaulted or neglected by family or loved one. You know, you can stop doing these things once you get yourself to the point that you can recognize these events coming on and separate. And pretty soon, once you start doing that, once you file, essentially, you make a mental file of your experience. And now, and this is where I highly recommend, and so do, the medical profession is on board now, that CPTSD is not like PTSD. Talk therapy is not the deal. It does not help most people. By all means, if it helps you, keep doing it. I'm not a doctor. But it's my experience, and it's Anna Runkle, the Crappy Childhood Fairies experience, and many others, that talk therapy, you're just reliving. You're reliving the experience over and over. So what you need to do is relive the experience, but it can be done once in such a way. Once, one session of EMDR has helped more people than I know. Everyone's shocked once they do the eye movement desensitization. Um, what's happening is you are full of feelings and sensations that a person without PTSD or CPTSD would organize into memories and thoughts. But you didn't do that because your neural connectivity didn't develop the same way due to the repeated trauma in your childhood. You literally did not grow the same type of neural connectivity that a person who is not subjected to any kind, neglect, traumatic loss of family members, being physically abused, food deprived. There are a lot of ways that you can end up with CPTSD. And by becoming aware of it, you will find that a lot of the things, bad habits that you may have, be they substance abuse or bad choices in other areas of your life, they can come back and center around your CPTSD, the experience that led up to it. And when you deal with that and you get it out of your heart and gut and realize the way it's affected so many aspects of your life, and then you do some either EMDR or the easiest thing, and the thing that I was going to say cured. There's no cure. There's no graduation date for survivors with CSA. But we're also perfectly capable of having wonderful, joyous lives, excellent sex lives, actual orgasms, all these things that most people with CPTSD don't even think about. They're just so busy trying to keep up, trying to be normal, trying to excel. They're usually the superstars, Me personally, I was into everything. I was saying this yesterday, honor society, drama club, first seat flute, cheerleader, tumbling team, I was a senior Girl Scout. Nobody knew. And why didn't I tell? Because I felt guilty, right? I have to separate the past from the present all day long, every day, because so many things trigger me. Just walking down the street, it can be nothing that triggers me. It can just be a thought. It can be a smell. And in the past, I would have dove right into, at times, bad things, at times over-exercising, starving myself, tried to kill myself a couple of times when I was 16 and 17. You can stop doing the negative things that are stopping you from having the inner joy that you need, or else you wouldn't be here. You'd be like, well, hey, I'm fine. I hope she gets better, and you wouldn't be here. I'm trusting if you're here that you have CPTSD, or your partner or a loved one does, or you're a medical personnel or an educator. Um, and I do speak, and I'm looking very forward to my TEDx talk. I'm planning on presenting it in Kansas City. Don't have the date nailed down yet, but I'm getting involved here with MOXAW, Missouri, Missouri Organization Against Community Sexual Assault. And I also live in Springfield, Illinois, so I'm hoping to do one there. And it's very important to get that message out. So separating the past from the present was the P. I'm going to go faster because we're going to talk for 2 days about each one of these things. A, ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given in life. And I kind of already touched on that. We take what's given. We are used to giving, not receiving. And we don't know receiving is a thing. And, I've gotten a lot of good advice and thoughts, food for thought from crappychildhoodfairy and others. But they don't get sex specific. And for those of us with sexual assault related cPTSD, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem across the board. I've been working on my book, and the manuscript's almost finished. We're so close to be adding in the artwork shortly. Photo call, Jessica, I'll be in touch soon. This picture, at least one of yours, I want permission to use. But anyway, working very hard at this. Asking for what you want is just so hard. It's hard to do in a relationship. It's hard to do on the job for even people without cPTSD. So imagine what it's like if you're walking around with guilt and shame and feeling like you're different from everybody else. You're just grateful for what you get instead of realizing you can manifest a better world for yourself. You can manifest a happier life and a better picture, and you can make the world what you want, but only once you start removing from it the things that you don't. And I talked about that yesterday. I'm not going to get all into that right now, but we will deeply talk about how to create the future that you want by simply removing. Here I go again. I guess I'm going to talk about it. Manifesting is so important, though. People are scared of manifesting. They think you're creating something, or you're hippy, dippy, trippy, or something. And it's like, no, manifesting just means making a goal. It's forward thinking. It's future planning. It's making a goal and heading for that goal. And making damn sure that nothing takes you from that path, at least not for long. And by staying on that path, whether it's career, whether it's love choices, whether it's diet and exercise, making choices that are healthy and sticking with them and removing the things that are negative from your life is going to leave no room for anything that doesn't fit. And I'm telling you, I spent 14 years alone, and I was much, much happier than I was in my 3 marriages. And not because marriage sucks and not because they were bad people, but because I hadn't done any of this work. I didn't know I had cPTSD. All I knew is I thought I was a low-life scum, trying very hard to excel at everything just to be equal to the lowest amongst you. And that is not how a person should feel. And if you feel that way, you might have cPTSD. We're going to fix that. So D, don't wait to feel okay to be okay. You'll see each one of these just leads naturally to the next one. The shame is not yours. So separate the past from the present, then ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given. And once you're okay, you're a perfectly normal CSA survivor, and you're never going to feel like someone who wasn't traumatized in your youth. But you are going to feel like an okay, strong person who can put that away as a chapter in your life, something to learn from, and preferably, and here we go to the E, something to teach with, educate, and advocate is the E in spades. You need, I insist, I demand, if you're going to hang out with me, I demand that you make a change in this world, that you make an effort to change the language of society. Whether you tell your story, and we're going to change that word too, because story is like calling sexual assault sexual abuse. Saying my story makes it sound made up. It makes it sound like crafted. It's a reality. So we're going to call them survivor realities. And this is a call right now, a call out, shout out, not shout out, call out. I have one section of the book I am still compiling, and it may turn into a whole book of its own, but it's survivor realities. And if you would like to discuss on screen or off with me, I'm going to be taking people on screen beginning next week, which is new to me. Scary. But I mean, not talking with people, but doing it, handling the buttons. Yeah. Obviously, my high dollar studio here hasn't left me budget for an assistant. So really all of my shopping, all of my .com, all of my everythings go back to raising money for the Sweet Survivor Resource Fund. And yeah, I'd like to keep a roof over, but that's what it's about now. So the final S in spades is spirit. Again, don't be scared. It's not about religion. It's not about religion. Fix your religion if you want to keep your religion. Don't let them marginalize people. Right? Take the love and the goodness and the kindness and all those kind of lessons. Take the community and the bonding. Take the hymns you love to sing and the candlelight ceremony. Take all of that and keep it. But you need to stand up within your religion if you're going to stay there for the people who are being marginalized, commoditized, reduced, diminished. Women and others in so much of this world don't even have a fighting chance at manifesting a life for themselves. They're trapped, they're traded, they're bought, they're sold. And whether it's done through sex trafficking or it's done through arranged marriages, and you called it culture, taking choice away from someone is unacceptable. So that's one part of spirit. The other part of spirit is to realize that you have one. You don't have to be religious to come into an awareness that you are a spiritual being, that the part of you that thinks is separate from the part of you that feels. And this is very important and loops back to the top of spades, to the first S. The shame is not yours. Once you realize that your spirit is contained in your body, then you will realize that your body cannot be ruined. The concept of virginity and being given and kept and cherished and stolen and robbed, these all are concepts that really make me angry. They're concepts made by a patriarchal system who decided that their dicks are important enough to change who you are based on whether or not it's been in you. That's ridiculous. You have a body. You are not your body. And no matter what has been done to your body, with your body, against your will, or even, I wasn't fighting. I just was groomed. And you don't have... calm myself down. The shame is not yours. And your spirit cannot be hurt by what someone does to your body. And don't let anyone tell you, and don't think it inside. And this is where we have to change the language of society. Don't let them tell you that something is different about you, that you're not good enough, that if anybody knows, they won't think of you the same way, that you won't be marryable or whatnot. I worried about all of that. I lied and said I was a virgin to everybody I had sex with at first because I was too ashamed to admit what I had in my mind at the time. I was still thinking been a part of. Now I see that it was done to me, and at such a young age that by the time I understood what was going on and the confusion had built, this is all going to be in my book. My book gets more specifically into my experience as well as touching on spades. And the book is Self-Talk, My Continuing Efforts to Survive Childhood Grooming, Sexual Grooming and Assault. And I've also, of course, written Surviving in Spades, How to Get from 6 Steps from Trigger to Happy, which this is all based on. So, thank you for being willing to take the step, whether you're a fellow survivor or whether you want to help make the world safer for everybody else. Thank you. You can do a $5 monthly subscription at SweetSurvivor. I would very much appreciate it. We need subscribers. Okay. I want to get my 501c3 status, and for that, we need some money. So if you would start a $5 monthly subscription, you can change it, cancel it yourself. You don't have to wait for, please cancel and wait for an email. It's a self portal at SweetSurvivor.com. There's a small, actually quite a bit, about 468, I think it is today, products made by women and family and community artisans available at the Sweet Shopping Group. Also, SweetShoppingGroup.com goes to SweetSurvivor.com, goes to LindaKGifford.com. Getting a picture here, they're all going to the same place. They all have the same mission, and I'm only paying for one website. So, Spades, join me. See you next Wednesday. We're going to start on the S. The shame is not yours. Okay? And I want you to make a sweet box. You're going to make a box that you're going to file up on your mental shelf. And that sweet box is here's your homework. Put in there your memories. Put in there your fears. Take them out of your gut this week. Do it somewhere safe. I'm not a doctor. But what worked for me was trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, where you write or draw your experiences. And when you do that, your brain then reprocesses the jumbled up or not so jumbled up memories, and it can think about them differently. Writing it down and reading your experience has a way of putting it into your permanent memory. So it still hurts, still traumatic, but now you can access it as information, and that will keep you out of that rabbit hole too. So more about all that. Signing off. Linda K. Gifford, survivor, joyous life. You deserve that. Now, yesterday it took forever for this thing to cut off. So if I make weird faces and stuff, pardon. I've also got TikTok running on my phone. Let me out of jail, TikTok. I need my RTMP key. I qualify, but it's beta, and then I just haven't gotten to me yet. So we will have better video once TikTok lets me